Shalom, all praises, blessings, glories, and honors to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Racha Kodash. Double honors to my elder apostles and bishop elders of Great Millstone, who have taught me this truth, as well of men of like mind. Shalom wa chasad, which means peace and mercy, to the elect of the nation of Israel, whom are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and Israelite foreigners of the sea line of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom are scattered here in America, which is Babylon the Great, and abroad. To you I say Shalom, and Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Ratazah. This lesson is edifying and informative. Ezekiel chapter 7 verse 19. They shall cast their silver in the streets, and their gold shall be removed. Their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord Yahweh. They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it is a stumbling block of their iniquity. In the news from the AP, UK inflation accelerates to 40-year high as food prices rise. In other news from the Press TV, EU businesses buckling under surging energy prices. Published 4 hours ago. Please bear with me 1 second while the article loads. The app is acting real slow this morning. So in the meantime, I will read the article here from the AP. British food prices rose at the fastest pace since 1980 last month, driving inflation back to a 40-year high and heaping pressure on the embattled government to balance the books without cutting help for the nation's poorest residents. Now, inflation is the general increase in the cost of goods and services due to the expansion of money supply within the economy. When a country's dollar rapidly loses its value, thus causing the cost of goods and services to increase, to go up. Food prices jumped 14.6% in the year through September, led by the soaring cost of staples such as meat, bread, milk, and eggs. The Office for National Statistics said Wednesday. That pushed consumer price inflation back to 10.1%, the highest since early 1982 and equal to the level last reached in July. The figures immediately fueled demands that the government do more to help families and retirees as it struggles to regain credibility after an ill-fated package of tax cuts roiled financial markets. Treasury Chief Jeremy Hunt ditched the package after he took office last week, but he has warned that this will be a difficult winter and spending reductions also will be needed. Glenn Sanderson, head teacher at St. Aidan's Catholic Academy in Sunderland, said schools across the country are finding it difficult to feed needy children, with many diverting money from textbooks and classroom teaching to subsidize meal programs. The suggestion of government budget cuts in this environment is appalling, he said. Parents are having to make difficult decisions. Do they pay the bus fare to send their child to education, or do they use that money to feed their child? Sanderson told the BBC, "In today's society, I find that completely unacceptable." Hunt this week told the House of Commons that the government would prioritize help for the most vulnerable while delivering wider economic stability. Prime Minister Liz Truss reinforced that point during the weekly Prime Minister's Questions session Wednesday, repeating a previous commitment to increase pensions in line with inflation. Inflation is only going to continue to appreciate, so it doesn't matter how much he increases pensions to try to line with inflation. Inflation will leave the rise in pensions behind, and people's money will only continue to devalue, which is what inflation does. It devalues the currency in a particular country while causing everything else to increase in cost. She didn't make a similar promise on benefits, but hinting they would. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has boosted food and energy prices worldwide. So obviously, they're blaming it on Russia. With shipments of natural gas, grains, and cooking oil disrupted. That added to price rises that began last year as the global economy started to recover from the see-you-know-what pandemic. While the jump in food costs took the biggest bite out of household budgets in Britain last month, prices are rising across the board. Transportation costs jumped 10.9%, furniture and household goods rose 10.8%, and clothing was up 8.4%. Housing costs rose 9.3%, driven by the rising price of energy. The government has sought to shield consumers from the impact of rising energy prices by capping the cost of electricity and natural gas. But Hunter has now limited the price cap to 6 months instead of the 2 years originally promised. That means inflation is likely to stay higher for longer than previously forecast, said Jack Leslie, senior economist at the Resolution Foundation, a think tank that focuses on improving living standards for low and middle income people. Also notice that they never mention hyperinflation. All you see in the news is inflation. Well, guess what? Hyperinflation will be the next major concern around the globe. This bleak outlook means that family incomes will continue to fall sharply again next year, especially as support with energy bills is withdrawn. Leslie said in a statement, "This is the context of debates within government about whether previous commitments to uprate benefits or pensions in line with prices should be the next U-turn to be announced." Faster inflation also fuels expectations that the Bank of England will raise interest rates further, and they will. And not just the Bank of England, but also the U.S. Central Bank, the Federal Reserve. And the more they raise it, and the faster they raise it, is the faster and the deeper the country will delve into the recession that it's already been in, because the U.S. has been in a recession. It's not getting there; it's already there. But what's gonna come next? A depression, and a recession is two or more consecutive quarters of negative GDP. Okay. The central bank is trying to slow inflation without tipping Britain into recession. Again, these mega economies have already been experiencing recessions, man. The British economy shrank an estimated 0.3% in August after growing just 0.1% in July, according to ONS figures. Today's hotter than anticipated inflation reading paves the way for another aggressive interest rate increase from the Bank of England at its next meeting in early November, said Victoria Scholar, head of investment at Interactive Investor. However, the central bank is between a rock and a hard place as it looks to curb price pressures without inadvertently adding to the risk of recession, which again, Britain and the US, as well as various other countries, have already been in a recession. Okay, but a more aggressive approach to the increasing of interest rates will only make said recession worse. And eventually, we're going to enter into depression. It's the same calculation going on in other countries, but the U.S. Federal Reserve has signaled it will continue its rapid rate hikes to combat inflation that is at a decade high 8.3%. The European Central Bank at its meeting next week is expected to make another big increase to certain record inflation in the 19 countries that use the euro currency. The EU's statistics agency, Eurostat, on Wednesday adjusted Eurozone inflation for September down slightly to 9.9%. This concludes the article. So, inflation is back at its 40-year high, okay, in the UK. And it's on its way back up also in the US. So also expect to, at some point, see hyperinflation. Now, before I read this article, let's reread Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 19, because there's going to come a point when people are going to start to cast their paper money in the streets because it's going to be of no use, it's going to be of no worth. Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 19, they shall cast their silver in the streets, and their gold shall be removed. Why? Because the money will become worthless. It will become insignificant. It will be of no use in society, because society at that point will be collapsing, will have had imploded. And their silver and their gold shall not, their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord Yahweh. They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels. So their money will not be able to deliver them from the day of the wrath of the Lord Yahweh. They can't pay the Lord to deliver them. They can't say, "Oh, here's a $100 bill, Lord. Can you deliver me now?" No, you can't do that. They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, meaning their minds, comfort their minds, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity, which is, what is iniquity? Sin upon sin. So, people's money won't be able to deliver them from the judgments to come, destructions to come. All right, so now this is from the Press TV, EU businesses buckling under surging energy prices, published 4 hours ago.
Abdullah Hassan runs a modest grocery store close to Brussels city centre. He only uses 3 refrigerators and turns them off for part of the day. Customers are complaining to him about rising prices at the checkout. The store might be modest, but his energy bills are certainly not.
I used to pay 250 euros per month for just electricity, not the gas. I do not have gas here. Now, they suggested me to increase my monthly bill to 850 euros. That's more than the triple. That's incredible. I cannot pay with a small business like this.
The move by EU leaders to cut Russian gas imports by 2/3 is taking its toll. It costs a fortune to import liquefied natural gas from the US. It's good for America, but not for EU citizens. The European Commission wants the EU's 27 countries to buy gas as one single client by April.
Europe's energy demand is very large, so it is logical that instead of outbidding each other, the member states and the energy companies should leverage their joint purchasing power.
The European Commission has just presented a new emergency regulation designed to fight high energy prices and ensure security of supply. But many experts say it is clear sanctions against Moscow over the conflict in Ukraine will continue to backfire. As desperate citizens look to alternatives, extreme anti-EU political parties in the bloc are gaining ground. It's for this reason that many analysts are saying EU leaders might look back on their handling of the Ukraine-Russia question with enormous regret. Billions of euro are being pumped by the EU into Ukraine's government and army. We do not hear any mention of peace negotiations. A countless number of business people in the EU, like Abdullah, are anxiously wondering for how much longer it will be feasible to keep their doors open. Jerome Hughes, Press TV, Brussels.
So eventually people are going to start to get sick and tired of their governments supporting Ukraine and not themselves. And they're going to start to also blame their governments for not, for pretty much sanctioning Russia to the point where it causes them to hurt themselves. That's why a lot of these different anti-NATO and EU organizations are forming. You know, that's why a lot of people are protesting, because people are demanding that their countries that are a part of NATO and the EU leave the EU. Like, for example, France. You have a lot of people in France demanding that France leaves the EU. So that's just an example. All right, so now let's read Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 25 and 26 and conclude the lesson. Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 25, destruction cometh, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. Right. So during the times of destruction that's to come, people are going to attempt to seek peace. And when they're going to be told that there's going to be peace and safety, that's when sudden destruction, that's when destruction is going to come upon them suddenly. Okay, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. It says, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. Mischief shall come upon mischief, and rumor shall be upon rumor. Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet. So bad news after bad news. Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet. Oh, we got to find those guys that used to be on the street corners that we would see, and also we would also see them on the internet. We got to seek those guys out to find out what's next, what's going to happen next. Why is all these things happening? Because we had ignored them. But guess what? Wit is going to hide itself, according to the book of Amos. The Lord's going to hide his knowledge. He's going to hide his prophets. So then what are you going to do? Run to Creflo Dollar and T.D. Jakes and all these different false prophets that won't have the answers themselves? Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet, but the law shall perish from the priest and counsel from the ancient. So they won't have the answers to help you when you're going to attempt to seek the answers from them. Okay? these false leaders, these people that you trust in your government, so on and so forth. So, with that, I'll conclude this lesson. Lord willing, it was edifying and informative. This has been another in the news. Until the next, I say shalom to the elect.